Thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening. I rise to support the motion of thanks to the Excellency the President's speech moved in the House.
Oh, is it like that?
Sir, the presidential address at the beginning of the term of a government is an important statement because it reflects the goals and the general architecture of its policies to reach these goals. And given that it occurs once in 5 years, this is a good opportunity for those of us who are not in government to comment and contribute to the shaping of governance and public policy for the next 5 years.
Tomorrow.
Unfortunately, sir, as we all know, cynicism prevails when such a list of promises are made as they have been in the presidential address. With the greatest respect to the Prime Minister, his last term also started with a large number of promises of structural reforms in areas like regulation, governance, and public policy, and we all realize precious little of them became reality. This has been explained away as the limitations of the complex coalition he ran that had to depend on political support from people who ostensibly did not like these reforms. Be that as it may, this mandate in 2009 is widely seen as a far wider mandate for this government with less political pulls and pushes, and therefore there should be no reasons for some real changes to occur, The defining statement, sir, in the presidential address is a statement, I quote, "The dreary sand of dead habit must be left behind," end quote. This is especially true in the critical aspect of governance reform, on which I shall talk, sir. Sir, my colleague Sri Arun Shourie said in his speech earlier, the challenge facing us today is not just about new spending programs, because economic growth is not just about fiscal profligacy and spending alone. There is a need for a new economic architecture, the centerpiece of which must be a more transparent and responsive governance model that focuses on outcomes as its deliverables. So, across many debates, we have all agreed in Parliament that economic growth is the panacea for all the ills of deprivation and poverty that afflict a large part of our population. Addressing the declining and dysfunctional and often compromised governance model that we have today should be priority number one, because the biggest risk factor to seeking long-term FDI and capital into our economy remains this whole issue of governance and the connected political and execution risk that is often associated with the Indian economy. Recent reports characterizing India's bureaucratic and administrative machinery as being amongst the most worst performing in the world does not add confidence to investors whose capital is critical to ensure that we develop a sustainable economic model of growth. So this is not the first time that a reference to governance has found place in a speech by Excellency the President. In June 2005, the President's address then said the following, and I quote, "My government is committed to the reform of government and to making it more transparent, responsive, and efficient. A model code of good governance is being drawn up," end quote, etc. So, sir, as a recent editorial in a leading paper commented, if the government is to show it means business, it must focus on governance reforms foremost. The focus must be to strengthening the institutions of governance, the administrative machinery, the regulators, judicial capacity, and efficiency. Sir, over the last few decades, while India has developed tremendously on the back of the energy and innovation of private entrepreneurs, it is obvious that the state capacity has lagged significantly. We need both private entrepreneurship and efficient governance as the two critical elements of the long-term equation for India's growth. If we are to fulfill the dream of India becoming an economic superpower, the state of institutions of governance must improve dramatically in the coming 5 years. While the presidential address addresses governance in broad terms, as has been in the tradition in the past, I believe the following must be included in the government's plan for governance in the next 5 years. So the time clearly has come for reform of the subsidy delivery model. My friend Sri Mysore Reddy has already spoken about this, so I will not take this up any further. The entire area of independent regulators, a concept that is about a decade and a half old in our country, needs reviewing and strengthening. Regulators currently are becoming parking spots for retired bureaucrats, leading to numerous cases of conflicts of interest. The quality of independent regulation in our country has declined over the last many years, with no signs or initiative or reverse trend. Sir, for example, after almost 2 decades after telecom liberalization, Our telecom regulator is unable to establish even today a transparent model for auctioning licenses and spectrum. There is something clearly wrong in this picture. I strongly urge a comprehensive review, including of laws and of the entire regulatory cadre by the government at the earliest. The vision of independent regulators was to create an independent administrative and judicial body. Instead, they're beginning to increasingly look and sound like parallel bureaucracies. So the Administrative Reforms Commission under Shri Veerappa Moily has also made far-reaching recommendations to make governance and bureaucracy more accountable and responsive. I would urge that the government not consign this to the dustbin like most reports and instead seriously start a time-bound program of implementing these recommendations and transforming governance.
Okay.
So I need 5 more minutes. I'll wrap it up in 5 minutes.
No, only 2 more minutes. Already
already
taken 6 minutes.
Let me briefly touch on
2 minutes maximum.
Let me briefly touch on a few more issues that are missing from the President's address and I believe should find place there. A comprehensive policy relating to monetization of assets like iron ore mines, spectrum for telecom, oil blocks or infrastructure projects should transparently and clearly benefit the exchequer and the citizens of India in particular, and in general, private-public partnership should not imply that the public side of the equation loses and only the private gains.
Okay.
In the area of national security, sir, I wish to point out one glaring chink in our preparedness. Shri Arun Shourie briefly touched on that. This is the area of cyber security and cyber threat. This is a chink because no department of the government is tasked with this responsibility and it falls in the grey bureaucratic twilight zone of responsibilities between home, telecom and defense. I would urge that this responsibility be squarely assigned to the Home Ministry.
Okay.
So, one second. I'll just finish.
1 minute.
So, in summary, what we need is a new deal for all of India, similar to what President Franklin Roosevelt unveiled in 1939 in the US, resulting in a long period of unprecedented growth, progress and transformation. So let me end by quoting from the President's address. Our young people are tearing down the narrow walls of religion, region, caste, language and gender. The nation must invest in their hope. The only way the Parliament and government can do this is to work on this recent phenomenon of political consensus around the critical issues that face our nation and people. I am sure we are all happy to see this new spirit of cooperation in our politics. I would urge the government to nurture this and grow this and let this spirit of consensus grow.
Yes, thank you.
This time around, the government has a mandate with no excuses, sir. Jai Hind.
Right. Thank you.